Hi, and welcome to episode number 11 of the Lewiston Tribune podcast. This is Matt Baney, the Tribune's managing editor, and today I'm joined by Kaylee Brewster. Kaylee covers crime and education for the Tribune, and also Christmas movies, right, Kaylee?
Yes.
Well, Kaylee, welcome. We're speaking right now just before Thanksgiving, but you folks will hear this podcast right after Thanksgiving, and what comes after Thanksgiving?
Christmas.
That's right. And so, Kaylee and I are going to talk about Christmas movies. Kaylee has a degree in...
A Master's of Film and Television Studies from the University of Glasgow in Scotland.
So, you have your bona fides.
I am certified to give opinions on film and television.
Okay, great, Kaylee. And this is really Kaylee's passion. She does a good job as a reporter covering crime and education, but film studies, I think, is your true passion in life.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Sometimes I think that I'm over it, and then I start talking about it, and people kind of get glassy-eyed when I go on for long times.
All right, well, I'll keep you on task here.
All right.
So, Kaylee, your theory is that there are sort of three classes of Christmas movies. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so you have kind of your Hallmark Christmas movies. They have, hundreds of those coming out every single year. Traditionally the Hallmark Christmas movie is on the Hallmark Channel. Some other channels like Lifetime kind of have their versions of it. Now with streaming, pretty much every streaming service has their version of just your generic cheesy romantic movie, the goal of which is to get two attractive people to fall in love with each other around the setting of Christmas. Usually it's filmed in Canada. They whip them out real quick. They don't bother with reshoots. They just, boom, 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 boom. All those movies out just to get them ready for the holiday season. That's why there's so many of them, is because they can produce those with little thought, little effort, little money. And that way you get your 10 Christmas movies for the countdown to Christmas. A lot of the actors are in multiple films. You'll see them kind of pop up in different things. And they have a very generic, traditional, predictable plot line that, people have now... They've kind of started a following of people who like them just for the simplicity of the plot, and people like me who sometimes watch them more for the humorous aspect of
Right.
of sometimes how it works. But they also get made fun of a lot by, all over social media. You'll see posts about, the Hallmark movie formula and all of that stuff. And then you have your traditional Christmas movies, the classics, as we call them. And I feel like these movies kind of are a little bit... What you feel is a classic movie depends on what you grew up watching. So, I didn't grow up watching Home Alone that often. I do now because I have Disney Plus and it's on, and, that's one. But, we tended to watch, It's a Wonderful Life and The Christmas Carol and all that stuff. Every single year I was somewhat forced to watch The Christmas Carol, the one with George C. Scott playing Scrooge. It terrified me. I was so scared. And every year it was like, no, we have to watch this movie. And I was like, why? And then...
What part in particular terrified you about that?
The ring wraith-like ghost of Christmas future was scary. The other part that scared me was... it's the ghost of Christmas Present, and he has that big cloak, and there's the point where he unveils the cloak, and it's two shivering, not fully clothed children underneath it, and I can't remember, it's supposed to be symbolic of something, but I can't remember what that was, but it just it just freaked me out. And I always argued for watching the Muppet Christmas Carol, but no, we had to watch the George C. Scott version. And then when the next generation came up in our family, I was like, oh, are we gonna watch, A Christmas Carol? And my parents were like, no, that's too scary for the young children. And I was like, that's what I've been saying this whole time. So now we watch Muppet Christmas Carol. Which, Michael Caine does a great Scrooge in that one as well.
That one's probably moved into the realm of classic.
Right. And then, I'm trying to think of some other, those were kind of the main ones.
Would you include sort of like a Charlie Brown Christmas?
Right. And then you have your holiday special ones. And it's kind of funny because each network kind of actually has their, so I believe Fox had The Grinch, CBS was Frosty the Snowman, NBC was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and there was another claymation one that was really freaky too. It was something with Santa Claus, I feel like. I can't quite remember what that was, but it was another kind of like claymation type
involved
one.
The Heatmeister.
That's right, yeah.
That one, I don't remember the name of that one.
Yeah, it didn't come around very often. Right. And then ABC for a long time had the Charlie Brown specials and all that stuff, which is now, I think, on Apple TV. But I think they let ABC sometimes still do it. But so yeah, kind of that. Actually, when I was in Scotland over the holidays, I was feeling a little bit homesick, and I found Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer on probably some site that I probably shouldn't have used, but I watched it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is that other country in Scotland, they have their own kind of holiday specials. There's always a Doctor Who Christmas episode. British Baking Show always has like a holiday episode and stuff. So I feel like the Christmas tradition of watching something together, holiday related on TV, is very much a part of not just American culture, but lots of places have that.
Okay. And then the third class of holiday movies, Christmas movies, is ones that are timed to show up in the theater at Christmas time. Is that right?
Right. So a lot of movies right now coming out in theaters are kind of family-focused movies. Some of them are holiday-themed, some of them aren't. And it's kind of interesting because that, typically in years past, I've noticed that most of those movies come out in December, but now they've started moving it further up in November, and I think it's just to avoid competition with each other. That way, kind of all the different movies get a time to shine, and you're not competing with, two, movies that are kind of appealing to the same audiences, fighting for attention. But that's when you have movies in theaters right now, like, again, your Christmas-centered ones, like Red One and The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. You have Wicked and Moana 2 coming out here this weekend. I guess you could also classify maybe Gladiator 2 in that, if you have maybe a little bit of an older... I'm not anticipating that you would take young children to that movie, but maybe. Mostly because I know if I was that age, I probably would be like, this is a boring, dumb movie. But
you might find that even more scary than the George C. Scott Christmas Carol.
I'm also terrified of sharks, and I've heard in that one there is a shark element in there, so I might have to watch that from the comfort of my home. But yeah, so, but if you have, if you are a family where, most of the people in your family are now in, the college age or high school age, you might not be able to convince everyone to to go to a musical. But I mean, I guess it, you know,
go to Gladiator 2.
Yeah. Or sometimes, I mean, I know sometimes what we did was it was like, hey, we're going to go to a movie, and if you want to see this movie at this time, you can see this movie at this time, or you can go see this movie. Like, it's like we're all going to the theater, and some people are going to different movies.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of the phenomena of people going to the movies even on Christmas? And I believe the theaters are generally open on Christmas Day.
I do feel sorry for the people who have to work, but I think that's a tradition that is probably goes back a few years, and I think one of the things with it is that it's just, you know, in the wintertime, it's dark early, it's cold, and you want to do something, and you want to get out of the house and do something. What are your options? Mm-hmm. You can't go outside. Maybe you can't go outside because it's too cold or too dark. You know, you can only drive around looking at Christmas lights for so long, especially if you have young kids. So yeah, going to a movie theater is a good option. And movie theaters are always like nice and cozy. Like, you know, I've seen people like bring blankets and stuff, and, you know, you get your snacks and you're all in there, all kind of tucked in and everything. And, I think a lot of it, too, is that it's like, you know, what movie do you want to see? Well, the movie that I actually want to see, I can't see at home because it's in theaters. Mm-hmm. So it's like you might as well just go to theaters.
Well, okay, Kaylee, thank you. So those are the three classes of movies as you see it, Christmas movies. So let's have you give us a few examples of a really good example of each of those classes. So now, okay, the Hallmark movies, the Hallmark type movies, first of all, how are you able to tell them apart? They're all so similar, right?
They are very similar. I was thinking about one the other day, and I was like, oh, what was that called? And I still have not found it. And part of the problem is that a lot of them have the name Chris. Like, there's always some sort of like Christmas element in the title. So it's like you can't even look it up because you're just gonna get all these Christmas ones. And I was even going back again onto Netflix and looking at some and being like, wait, no, I did watch that one. Wait, no, maybe I didn't. Like, anyway, sometimes it is really hard to tell. They do all look very similar to each other. One of the things that I've noticed happening, though, in some cases is not that they're completely flipping the script, but it's kind of like maybe trying to do a few things that are kind of maybe deviate off course just a little bit. You can't do it too much, otherwise audiences get really mad. But just kind of trying to be like throwing a little tweaks, like minor tweaks.
Can you give us an example of
well, yeah, one of the examples. So I watched Hot Frosty on Netflix, and in this one, the main character is a woman who is a widow. Her husband died, and usually it's the man, a widower with a kid that is kind of the love interest in the movie. So it was kind of like, oh, now women get a chance to be sad about their spouses dying. So, you know, a little, right. So yeah, that's kind of, yeah. And the one that I was trying to think of was, again, I can't remember what it was called, but it was about kind of two friends kind of going back home for the holidays, and there's this guy from their high school that they were both kind of in love with or whatever, and kind of, again, I can't quite remember exactly how it turns out, but in that one, the theme of the relationship in that one that was kind of at the core of the plot was their friendship, not necessarily a romantic relationship. I mean, that was part of it, but it was more the focus on, like, oh no, are these guys going to be friends at the end of the movie? So anyway, kind of, again, little tweaks like that don't totally mess with the formula, but just kind of like, you have a little bit of a diversion before it gets back to your again formula line again.
So, if I put you on the spot, what is the best Hallmark Christmas movie?
Well, this year, again, because there's about 100 new ones every year, I thought I was watching one from this year, but it was from last year, and then I watched... I would say right now my current favorite is Hot Frosty.
Without spoiling it, can you give us a little indication of what it's about?
So basically, it's the concept of... I'm pretty sure this movie started with somebody asking, what if Frosty was hot? What if Frosty, when you turned a snowman into life, what if he wasn't just some Michelin snowman, but like a really attractive man? That's, I think, the genesis for this, where instead of it's a magic scarf brings him to life, brings this snowman sculpture technically to life, and it does have those elements of the snowman doesn't know how to be human, so there's kind of that element of like, having to teach the snowman what to do, what not to do. Apparently the other thing about Hallmark movies is that apparently there is a very low crime rate because women are more than happy to let strange men live in their homes and have zero problem with that. Also, single women who work at a diner are also apparently able to afford a home. So that's...
These are some of the tropes.
Right.
Okay.
But yeah, so Hot Frosty is a fun one. It's also fun because there's a lot of actors in there who are familiar. The main actress is played is the same actress who plays Gretchen Wieners in Mean Girls. The actor who plays Hot Frosty is in the TV show Schitt's Creek. And then there's a few other side characters who might be familiar to people from other shows. So.
Okay. All right. Well, now this is maybe the hardest one for you. Of the classics, the classic holiday movies, what do you think is the best one?
I would have to go with It's a Wonderful Life, just because it has a lot of longevity as a classic Christmas movie, and there's a whole history on that as well that I won't get into. But it's also just like it's just kind of it's a wonderful story. But it's just kind of your ultimate feel-good movie, and it's just also like from a cinematic perspective as well, all the aesthetics that make for a good film, things like acting and even like the cinematography and the script and everything are just spot on.
It's interesting too how it, of course, the main events of it at the end of the movie take place at Christmas time, but a lot of the movie is not set during Christmas,
So yeah, it is. Anyway, so a little bit of the history of It's a Wonderful Life, and this is me remembering it. I might have to go back and recant some of this, but from what I remember, it did not do very well at the box office, and then once TV started becoming a thing, I think when they released it in theaters way back when, it was like released in like the summer or something. Anyway, but they started playing it at around Christmas time on TV, and that's when it really started to connect with audiences and also kind of develop that Christmas connection. And that's also when I first started watching it, it was on TV around Christmas time. And but yeah,
and I believe it what happened was it was so forgotten about when it was released that the studio that owned its rights allowed it to lapse into public domain.
Right.
And then TV stations were able to air it without having to pay any royalties, and so it really got a lot of airings during the holiday season.
Right. Yeah,
that's how it became such a classic.
The message of Christmas movies is making a lot of money with having to pay very little. But yeah, and the other thing with It's a Wonderful Life too is that it was, the film basically destroyed director Frank Capra's career. Like after that movie, he didn't really make anything else, and it was after World War II, and he kind of made it to like kind of lift everybody's spirits up and stuff, and I think there's also I feel like sometimes there's some similarity between Lewiston and Bedford Falls, just in terms of kind of like, okay, you have these small town places and these small town people, but that doesn't mean that it's like, they're not doing anything special. I mean, there's still wonderful stories and wonderful people, in these small spaces. And just because you don't get out and make something of yourself doesn't mean that your story or your life doesn't matter. And I think that's something that resonates with a lot of people in a lot of places.
It is interesting how, the character that Jimmy Stewart plays, he could have had the talent to go on and do other things, but anyway, I agree with you. It's a great message.
Maybe we'll do another podcast just about It's a Wonderful Life.
Who is the Mr. Potter of the LC Valley? Maybe
I shouldn't.
Or some candidates. Everybody out there might have some thoughts.
Yeah, everybody has their own personal Mr. Potter, I feel like.
Well, I agree with you. That's a go-to for me. It's a Wonderful Life during the Christmas season. Do you have any others that you always make sure to watch during the holidays?
Well, Muppet Christmas Carol is one. And Home Alone has kind of gotten... Home Alone has kind of re-entered the rewatch there. There's also a movie on Netflix that's not Hallmark style called Klaus. It's Klaus. And it's an animated story about kind of another version of like the origin of Santa. And it's just really beautifully animated and a really unique style, and it's a really like lovely, heartwarming story. And I was like, when I first watched it, I was just like, let's put this on, and then I was like crying by the end of it, just because it was like, oh, this is so sweet. And it's kind of another story about like the main character kind of has a personal transformation through the whole thing as well. But I would recommend that one too. That's kind of become a more modern one that I revisit every year. Okay.
And then you mentioned movies that are timed to come out at the holiday season. Can you think of any that really stand out in your mind? I guess, which ones from this year are you most excited about? Or can you think from the past that ones that came out at Christmas time that maybe really hit with you?
Yeah, so... trying to think. So this year, when I went and saw Wicked this weekend, and it was phenomenal. It is long, so make sure you have proper hydration and food, which I made sure I did. I also really enjoyed. There's a couple that I didn't quite get to see, like Red One. I'm hoping to see Moana 2 here this weekend, and I also really enjoyed the Best Christmas Pageant Ever. That was a little bit of a surprise. I kind of went in with a kind of like, well, we'll see, and then I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. But I'm trying to think of years past. I remember, and again, it's one of those things where it's like, in thinking of the years past, I mean, I would go to movies by myself like all the time, just because there were things I was interested in seeing. But like in thinking to the past, it's always like, okay, my family and I went to go see, I think we went and saw, trying to think, maybe it was actually around Thanksgiving, where my mom, my sisters, and I and my nieces went to go see Little Women, the movie that was released a couple years ago, directed by Greta Gerwig. We also went and saw Enchanted That was a fun movie to go see. And it's funny too, because some of my family members aren't as, some people like going to see movies in the theaters. Some of them don't, but there's, when you can kind of get everybody all together to go see a movie, it's just kind of a fun experience to go all see a movie together. And then, spend the rest of the day talking about it and discussing it and stuff.
Can I tell you one of my favorite Christmas movies?
Of course.
Die Hard.
Okay.
Now, do you agree with me? This is a fun question that people have probably seen online and elsewhere. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Okay. So, I'm going to preface this by saying, if you disagree with me, that is fine. My thing is, whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie depends on how you define a Christmas movie. And that's why I think that people can have different opinions on this, because different people have different ways of defining a Christmas movie. My definition of what makes a Christmas movie is if you took Christmas out of the plot, would the movie still happen? If you take Christmas out of the plot and the movie can still happen, then it's not really a Christmas movie. If you take Christmas out of the plot and it can't happen, or you have to kind of like change a whole bunch of things to make it happen, then it probably is a Christmas movie. So maybe even by that definition, It's a Wonderful Life isn't a Christmas movie. I don't know. So anyway, maybe I am faulting my own theory here.
But you'd be on the side of it not being a Christmas movie.
I am on the side of it not being a Christmas movie. Not that I don't think it is a great movie.
Let me point out that they would not have the Christmas party at the high-rise if it wasn't Christmas time.
However, you could easily write around that. and the other thing that I would say is with Die Hard is, okay, you say you have Die Hard and you have Home Alone, which in some ways is kind of the same movie. It's
True.
Just one is a man fighting terrorists alone by himself, and the other is a child fighting robbers alone by himself, both using interesting methods to do so. And in Die Hard, and both movies have, so in Home Alone, if you took Christmas out of the equation, you would have to write, okay, you could write around the family leaving, but it's like the whole point of the robbers being there was they were there specifically at Christmas time because there were lots of presents and there were lots of people gone. So you would have to figure out another way for that scenario to work, which would probably be difficult. However, both movies also have a large amount of sequels after them. In the Die Hard sequels, I don't think any of them take place at Christmas time.
I believe the second one does.
Okay.
But you're right. After that, no.
Whereas
doesn't matter.
Whereas Home Alone, every single Home Alone, at least from my understanding, is around Christmas time. So I think that also shows kind of the, But if you think Die Hard's a Christmas movie, go for it.
Well,
Die Hard being a Christmas movie or not is not a hill that I am willing to die hard on. So
I made my wife watch Die Hard at Christmas time in the last year or two, and I don't think that it being Christmas time enhanced the viewing of the movie.
Right. And there's lots of we one year for Christmas convinced my dad to let us watch Little Women, the one with Winona Ryder that came out in the 90s, because there's one scene in the movie that takes place at Christmas, therefore it's a Christmas movie. Really, we just wanted to watch Little Women. Also, a couple years ago, or even more than a couple years ago, Iron Man 3 comes out around Christmas time. But again, it's not, I've seen it in summer. I think even when it came out in May. So anyway, so yeah,
there's... Is there a Christmas scene in Die Hard, or Iron Man 3?
There is... there's various scenes that take place around, the Christmas. I mean, yeah, again, it takes place around Christmas, so there are Christmas backdrops to it, but it's not, he's fighting terrorists, so they're kind of not necessarily seasonally related. I do like Die Hard though for the last Hans Gruber scene where he's if that doesn't give you fear of heights, then
I've seen. In fact, I think Friends own it. The Hans Gruber falling down the building Christmas countdown.
Yeah, right. And,
it's interesting. I would say that with Die Hard, this has only been a thing. This is an internet thing, really.
Right.
Whether it's a Christmas movie or not, I don't think anybody talked about it until online discourse became much more prevalent, maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, I don't. No one. I think it came out in the summer.
Yeah.
And the Christmas setting. Who knows why they decided to set it then? But I will say that whether or not it's a Christmas movie, the Christmas themes are really all over. There's Christmas music. There's Christmas trees. Lots of talk of Christmas.
Yeah. Is it like the? It's been a while since I've seen it, but he has like the note that he sends to them. That's like ho 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 and.
He writes it in blood on a terrorist shirt who he killed. And yes, it says, ho, 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 I have a machine gun too.
Yeah.
Now,
and red
that's
is
a Christmas movie to me, right?
Right, and red is a very Christmas color. Yes. So,
Well, Kaylee, on that note...
Merry Christmas!
Yes, Merry Christmas, everybody! Anyway, thanks everybody for joining us. Kaylee, thanks for the insight. Always fun to talk about movies with you. And thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Lewiston Tribune podcast. See ya.